We need to talk about the linguistics of Prometheus, where an android talks to aliens using Proto-Indo-European.
Jag hade förstått det. Det var kredast.
In the movie, two researchers discover the same star chart in ancient cave paintings all over the world, alongside these large ancient beings that they call the engineers. They think that these engineers are an alien species that visited Earth, so they launch a mission to go visit the star system that's depicted in these maps. They get there and they find one of these aliens in stasis, they wake him up, and the ship's android starts talking to the alien in Proto-Indo-European, which is the ancestor language from which all the modern Indo-European languages descend. Proto-Indo-European was spoken around 8,100 years ago near the Fertile Crescent, and then it gradually split into distinct languages as it spread throughout South Asia and into Europe. How do we know that the android was speaking Proto-Indo-European to the alien? Well, because earlier in the movie we see him on the ship listening to a lecture about it and reciting what's called Schlecha's Fable. Schlecha's Fable is a story written in Proto-Indo-European using the words that linguists have been able to reconstruct for it. It's not a real story from history. There aren't like ancient inscriptions of it or anything. It was just created by linguist August Schlecha in 1868 as an example of what Proto-Indo-European might have sounded like. And as our knowledge of Proto-Indo-European has improved, we've continued to revise it over the years. So how plausible is this plot? If we encountered ancient aliens who spoke Proto-Indo-European, would they be able to understand our reconstruction? Probably not, because unless the aliens had been in stasis for 8,000 years, their language would have been changing too. Languages fracture and change over time. Proto-Indo-European split apart into many different languages and eventually evolved into English and Spanish and Hindi and hundreds of other languages. The same thing would have happened to the aliens' language. Another plot point that doesn't really work from a linguistic perspective is that these cave paintings that the researchers found these star charts in tend to be in the range of 10,000 to 40,000 years old, but Proto-Indo-European is only around 8,000 years old. Okay, but setting that aside, what if the aliens were in stasis? Or what if we jumped back in time and tried to speak to the original Indo-Europeans using our reconstruction? Would they understand it? Well, maybe. The more evidence we have for any given reconstruction, the more accurate our reconstruction is likely to be. Some reconstructions have tons of evidence for them, but others maybe only have two words in modern languages that are cognates. Nonetheless, we're pretty confident about the sounds that Proto-Indo-European had and what its grammar was like. We know that it had 8 or 9 noun cases and 3 grammatical genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter. We know it had 3 numbers, singular, dual, and plural. We know all the pronouns and numbers for counting. And we know that word order was generally subject, object, verb. Probably the biggest hurdle to communication, though, would be the meanings of the words. Words are constantly changing their meanings and can reverse or completely change their meanings within just a single generation. For example, I did a video recently explaining how the Proto-Indo-European word for yellow eventually gave us all the English words chlorine, cholera, arsenic, felon, jaundice, gall, yolk, yellow, and gold. That's a huge range of meanings. So it's often really hard to pinpoint the exact meaning of one of these reconstructed forms, even when we know how that word was pronounced. Overall, though, I think we'd get by communicating okay, and one of the reasons I think that is because this situation has already sort of happened. We didn't exactly time travel, but linguists did make some hypotheses about a reconstructed language that later turned out to be right. In 1879, linguist Ferdinand de Saussure used some subtle evidence to reconstruct 3 additional consonants for Proto-Indo-European. Nobody really believed him until the Hittite language was discovered and deciphered, and linguists realized it was an Indo-European language that had exactly the consonants that Saussure had predicted. In addition, we know that the historical reconstruction methods we use work because when you apply them to modern Romance languages, you reconstruct Latin, and we have written evidence of Latin to confirm our reconstruction. So when the ancient aliens show up speaking Proto-Indo-European, yeah, we'll probably have to adjust a few grammatical endings or change our pronunciation just a bit, but overall I think we'll get by just fine. I'm Danny, I post about the science and diversity of language. Follow if you want to learn more.